It's 8 p.m. and here are our top stories. A concession in a key race. Democrat Caraveo is set to be the first person to represent House District 8 in Washington. But the ballot counting continues.
It is fast and furious. These folks are doing the best they can to be expedient.
Why it's another race on the ballot that could impact your life even more. And it's down to the wire in House District 3. The latest on the neck-and-neck battle between Lauren Boebert and Adam Frisch. Plus, psychedelic mushrooms, wine in grocery stores, and affordable housing.
If we don't pass this measure, we're not going to have a dedicated revenue stream.
A look at where some of the undecided ballot issues stand tonight.
Good evening, and thank you for watching Denver 7 News on Local 3. I'm Jessica Porter.
And I'm Amy Wattis. It has now been at 25 hours since polls closed in the midterm elections in Colorado. Tonight, we are waiting on one important House race to be called, while another is now over.
We're starting with the newly formed House District 8 in Weld, Adams, and Larimer counties. This race has been neck and neck, but Republican candidate Barbara Kirkmeyer tweeting tonight that she has conceded to Democrat Caraveo.
And new here on Local 3, Caraveo is declaring victory. In part of her statement released, Caraveo saying, quote, "Our community showed up and our voices were heard. It's the honor of my lifetime to receive this vote of confidence to serve working families from Greeley to Commerce City in Washington, D.C. I look forward to doing the hard work to fight for working families across every part of the 8th Congressional District."
And there are still ballots being counted that will determine races at the state level. For instance, House District 49, where we have the latest number separating Representative Judy Amabile from Republican Katie Lear.
Now, Denver 7's Megan Lopez visited counties still counting ballots today to show us democracy in action.
In an age where information moves at the speed of light, sometimes it can be hard to remember that democracy takes time.
We've been here since early this morning.
Hard to remember that elections don't end on Election Day.
It is fast and furious. These folks are doing the best they can to be expedient.
Here in Larimer County, election judges are busy processing the final ballots in the midterm. The county received 66,000 more ballots on Election Day.
That's a record number for Larimer County, as opposed to something like 40,000 in the last gubernatorial. So it's quite a lot.
Not a record turnout, just a record for day of returns. Over in Weld County,
last night, we left with a little over 30,000 ballots that still needed to be processed and counted.
A similar day of story.
We received over 30,000 ballots after 7 p.m. We did stay until about 1:30 in the morning to get all of that completed and get everything prepped and ready to go for today.
And in Adams County, even more ballots yet to be processed.
We're really excited to see the turnout. We have about 36,000 ballots that are yet to be counted.
These counties know people are eager to have results, and they're working as quickly as they can.
Hang tight, because the most important thing to you is that our process is accurate and that we are taking the care and giving this process the respect it deserves.
But they're committed to getting every ballot counted and getting it done correctly. So no, there may not be a definitive winner tonight, but the process is working as it should, because sometimes democracy takes time.
This is not our first rodeo, and so we got our cookies, we got our Red Bulls, people are rocking and rolling.
Megan Lopez, Denver 7.
A lot of work left to be done. Now to the race for House District 3, which has also been neck and neck between Republican incumbent Lauren Boebert and Democratic challenger Adam Frisch. Right now, Frisch is holding a lead, but by the slimmest of margins, as you can see on your screen.
Now, this is a surprise, as many experts and analysts had predicted this race would be a slam dunk for Boebert. Tonight, Denver 7's Rob Harris is digging into the question many are asking: what happened in CD3?
Yeah, and Jessica, that is the big question that Republican Party officials and voters alike are asking themselves tonight. How a district viewed as a safe for Republicans got this close without anyone noticing, especially in a year when Democrats were facing political headwinds. Now, as of tonight, we're looking at a recount. Colorado law requires it for races that end up within 0.5% of each other, and this race is currently within 0.2%.
You definitely get the sense that Democrats overperformed and Republicans underperformed.
Dr. Anand Soki is the director of the American Politics Research Lab at CU Boulder. He and his team got most of the races and margins right, but he too is very surprised at how tight the race is between Lauren Boebert and Adam Frisch.
It was expected to be a cruising win for Boebert, and of course we're seeing this being really tight coming down to the wire. I think many of us didn't expect what we're seeing.
Soki and his team aren't alone. Check out this forecast from 538 just before the election. It gave Boebert a 97% chance of winning the race.
There was just kind of that assumption that that was what's going to carry the day. Also, because of that, right, you kind of, this gets an inertia of its own. So a district is labeled safe by a variety of pundits and pollsters, and then, there isn't as much polling that's going on. So there aren't as many data points.
As we look to a recount in the coming weeks, political scientists are analyzing many questions, like how Representative Boebert, from a district considered safe Republican, could see a 15-point swing since the 2020 election.
Some of these messages that candidates like Boebert have been associated with didn't seem to play that well, making statements about kind of non-separation of church and state, things like that. So there's a possibility that some of that stuff may, have had an effect and brought some voters out. It's not easy to say at this point exactly what the narrative is, what's going on there, but it's pretty clear that the Democratic candidate has managed to rally and in a lot of ways, again, overperform expectations.
Now, more than 95% of ballots in District 3 have been counted, according to the New York Times, but the race has not yet been called. Dr. Soki says the District 3 takes longer to tabulate because it's so big and it encompasses so many counties, each counting ballots on their own. Amy?
All right, Rob, thank you. We'll see what happens. Now, the outcome of the House District 3 race could play a role in determining the balance of power in the House of Representatives. Republicans have been expected to take control of the House from Democrats. And as it stands now, the GOP is just a few wins away from doing so. Republicans need 218 seats to control the chamber. Right now, they're at 211.
Still up in the air tonight is the balance of power in the Senate, with 4 races still without winners. In Nevada, Republican Adam Laxalt is leading Democrat and incumbent Catherine Cortez Masto. Meanwhile, in Arizona, incumbent Democrat Mark Kelly holds a lead over Republican challenger Blake Masters. The Senate race in Alaska also hasn't been called. However, that race will go Republican. Right now, challenger Kelly Shibaka is leading Republican incumbent Lisa Murkowski. And we won't know the balance of power in the Senate for another 4 weeks. That's because the Senate race in Georgia is headed for a runoff. Neither Democratic incumbent Raphael Warnock or Republican challenger Herschel Walker secured enough votes to win. In Georgia, a candidate must get 50% of the vote plus 1 more vote in order to win. Voters in Georgia will head back to the polls on December 6th in a runoff that will be watched closely all over the world.
President Biden is calling Tuesday's election a good day for democracy, despite Democrats likely losing the House to Republicans and the balance of power in the Senate still undetermined. During a press conference this afternoon, the president signaled he is willing to work with Republicans.
While we don't know all the results yet, at least I don't know them all yet, here's what we do know. While the press and the pundits are predicting a giant red wave, it didn't happen. And I know you were somewhat miffed by my obsessive optimism, but I felt good during the whole process.
When asked about whether the results will persuade him to run for re-election, Biden said he will discuss it with his family over the holidays.
Coming back to Colorado now, voters here did not just vote on the House seats and the governor's races. They also voted on numerous ballot issues, some which are still not decided. Proposition 122 would legalize psychedelic mushrooms. Right now, yes votes are leading. And Proposition 125 would allow grocery stores and other businesses licensed to sell beer to also sell wine. Right now, it's no votes that are ahead. And Proposition FF would raise state taxes to fund a school meal program. Yes votes are leading on that one.
Another statewide ballot measure we are still waiting for results on is Proposition 123. The measure is still too close to call. The big question is why such a division, being that affordable housing is such a big issue in the Denver metro. I spoke with a local expert who shares some perspective.
Proposition 123 is a ballot question that Elizabeth Peets with the Colorado Association of Realtors says was likely confusing to some voters.
If we're trying to help a continuum of housing for unhoused or homeless prevention, rental, with this really transformational rent-to-own equity vehicle and homeownership down payment assistance, that's a lot for voters to understand.
If passed, Proposition 123 would dedicate 0.1% of the state's income taxes each year for affordable housing projects. It would not raise income taxes in the state. However, it would likely result in fewer Tabor refunds for taxpayers. The ballot initiative is expected to raise $145 million in budget year 2022-2023 and $290 million the year after.
One of the things that might have given voters some pause is what happens if local governments don't take up the ability to use a grant, and then that money goes into the general fund.
But that's not something Pete says people need to worry about. The measure will require legislation, which she says will make sure the money is spent adequately. But Pete says if the measure fails,
if we don't pass this measure, we're not going to have a dedicated revenue stream for affordable housing. What that means is we have to depend on the existing programs that we have.
Pete says that money will eventually run out in a few years, and then it's back to the drawing board, stressing that if the housing crisis is not addressed soon, she believes we will see more and more people leaving the state.
We are going to lose some of those critical civil servants, the teachers, the firefighters that can't afford to live in Colorado.
Chairman of the Tabor Committee, Penn Pfeiffer, and opponent to Proposition 123, says if this measure passes, it is going to make Colorado an experiment that could end up putting our economy in very bad shape.
Denver 7 will be watching closely as we wait for races and ballot issues to be called. You can find the latest anytime over at denver7.com.
Still ahead tonight on Local 3, state health officials sounding the alarm about a virus infecting children.
Pretty unusual and severe RSV season that we're experiencing currently.
The steps the state is taking to treat patients and what you should do to keep your child safe.
Near 80 in the south, near freezing northeast. I'll sort it all out for you in the weather.
Plus, the bye week is in the books, and the Broncos are ready to put another game in the win column.